Welcome to A Valid Answer with Scott and Marshall. You're watching on Kerncast every Sunday night at 5 p.m. We're here, pastor and an atheist, talking about, things going on, the news, philosophy, religion, all that kind of stuff. Ideas, that's right. Yeah. So what do we got going on today, Mark? What do we have for us today, Marshall? I think I did that last week.
Well, today we're going to talk about institutional racism.
Ooh.
And that's a big issue. It's a hot button topic, and I think we should just jump right into it because this is a passionate issue, and it's a really big deal, and I'm glad we finally have a chance to address it on the show.
All right. So here we go. You saw our promos. It can be considered maybe silly that two white guys are gonna talk about racism. We have to. We're trying not to be silly about this. We're trying not to be, offhand about it. It is a serious discussion, but at the same time, it has to be done. And all right, here we are.
There you go. Well, I told people that I had something a little bit shocking to say.
Yes, I saw that. I don't even know what that is. He hasn't. We just so you guys know, on this program, we really don't like to try to script out what we're going to do. We have an idea. We know there's a topic. We get some notes going on. We kind of know what we're going to say, but we really don't feel like it's going to be too scripted. So when he said that, I'm like, oh, this sounds interesting. Let's see what's going to happen.
Well, what I'm about to say, I don't say lightly. I say this after a tremendous amount of self-reflection and consideration, so I don't want it to come across as, look, it's a shock moment, and he's just trying to get ratings, if you will, or something like that.
Wow, okay.
But here's what I have to say. I'm going to tell everyone right now that I am a white supremacist.
Ooh.
I'm a white supremacist. Now, here's what I mean by that.
Okay.
Here's what I mean by that, okay?
Okay.
I am not a hood-wearing, cross-burning, Nazi goose-stepping type of white supremacist. Instead, what I mean by that is I participate in, I perpetuate, and I benefit from a system of institutionalized white privilege established by my ancestors. And my acknowledgement, my recognition that I am a participant in that system is key to my removing myself from participation in that system.
How are you going to remove yourself?
And that's a great question because I don't know. I don't know.
You're going to give all your stuff to people of color?
I don't know. Because
no, I'm saying.
And remember, I don't know is a valid answer.
I know,
but we call the show a valid answer.
I know, but I mean, it's.
But the first step is to acknowledge there's a problem, and that we are all participating in this problem. All of us white folks in America who are benefiting from white privilege, we are participants.
How white do you have to be?
I don't know.
Then, no, that's not valid right now.
Okay.
How? I mean, you're saying as a white person, you've called me white.
Right.
How? My father was 100% Mexican. Both of his parents were from Mexico, immigrants. So I'm 50% Mexican. But how white do I have to be to have to say all of my privilege now has to be gone and I got to give it away to somebody else because apparently I unfairly got it? How white do I have to be to do that?
I don't know. Race exists.
But you've made a decision for yourself. No, but you've made a decision for yourself. You've said, so how much whiteness do you have that you have to do that?
Enough.
What's enough?
But I don't know. At what point I don't face discrimination because of the color of my skin, that's the threshold. Now, I don't know where you draw that line because it's like, where does one color on a rainbow turn into the next
If you don't
color?
know where that line is, then how can you say you've already crossed it?
Well, because clearly I'm white and clearly I benefit from the system of white privilege that dominates in America.
But how clearly can it be when you can't even define what whiteness is? How clear can you actually be if you can't even define what whiteness is?
I know the difference between black and white. I can't tell you where the gray area in between where it stops being one color and becomes another. I cannot quantify that for you. I cannot draw a bright line for you. But what I can tell you is that there are certain experiences that people have, and it's predicated largely upon the color of their skin. When I've been stopped by a police officer, I have never once feared for my life. I have never had to tell my kids that when a police officer approaches you, you have to be immediately and absolutely compliant. Otherwise, it could be a life or death situation for you.
I have told my kids that.
Well, okay, and that's fine.
I've told them you be compliant. That's how it works. That's what you do. You be compliant, and then as soon as you're compliant, that wall drops. There's not a police officer coming up on a car doesn't know if they're coming up on a situation where they're going to get shot or a situation where someone's going to just sign their name on the ticket. They don't know until they start to deal with you. And then how you deal with them in return is how you respond to them is what determines what happens next.
Well, there is a key difference where you have a black person who is simply reaching for his wallet as directed by the police officer who gets shot to death.
And white people have never that's never happened to a white person.
I don't know, has it? Has it? I haven't seen it happen. I don't see white
but
people
you're making
choked to death while they are handcuffed.
Yes, that's happened.
Taken for
that's happened. I've seen that on video. Yes, I've seen that happen. The implication that you're saying a black person, your implication of your statement is that it doesn't happen to white people. You're making that implication with the way that you're saying that, and that's not true. You know that's not true. You know that this happens across the board.
No, I disagree.
Yeah.
No, I think
okay. So white people have never been abused by the police.
Well, I imagine some have.
Okay. But so it does happen.
It does happen, but it doesn't happen at the same level of intensity in our society that it happens to black people. Systematic racism exists. And I've got stats.
Racism exists among individuals. I absolutely agree that. I absolutely know that there are people who are racist. I believe there are people who don't realize that they're racist, but their actions and how they see people it shows up as actual racism, even though they may not see it. I believe that. I also believe that there is a side effect. I believe that there is a side effect to things that are happening on an institutional level that is affecting neighborhoods and cultures of color.
So you agree then that institutional racism exists?
No, I do not believe that I do not believe, and again, we're going to get into the semantics and how we're defining it. But again, I'm very much about the meanings of words, and I may be wrong in how I'm interpreting institutional racism. Interpreting. Yeah. What was that? Anyway. But the interpretation of institutional, and I don't believe that the system is set up so that people of color cannot succeed. I believe that it is possible for them to succeed. And I believe there are things that are happening within the system that are side effects that do affect it, but I do not believe that the system is set up to hold them down. I don't believe that there is a white supremacy saying we really need to keep those people of color down, and we're going to set up this institution to do it. That's how I view institutional racism, and I don't believe that's happening. I believe there are side effects of what the system does that has effects on it, but I do not believe that there is a system that is designed to keep people of color down so that the white people can stay in power. I don't believe that is a design.
Well, the system is made of individuals.
Mm-hmm.
It's made up of individuals. And individuals have biases, and sometimes these biases are subconscious. And when we go about our daily business, we don't leave our core beliefs at the door. When you go to work, Scott, I don't think you leave your religious faith at the door.
Okay.
You carry it with you into your work. Likewise, if a person is racist, or maybe a person isn't even cognizant of their racism, maybe a person just, I just feel a little uncomfortable around black people, or I'm just not used to black people, or I don't find black people to be attractive, or whatever. And they have this playing on a subconscious loop in the back of their mind that's going to manifest itself in the decisions that they make, such as, who do I hire for a job?
Mm-hmm.
And that is how institutional racism works. There is no law in the United States that I'm aware of that says that white people get this and black people get this. There's no law on the books.
And that's how I define institutional racism.
But that's just right. Now, and I understand that.
Yeah.
But what I'm telling you is those laws are interpreted by people who have subjective biases, and that is where the institutional racism kicks in. And that is why, for example, the Whites make 73% of the population. Blacks make 12.6% of the population. Yet the white population in prison is 58%, and the black population is 37%, more than double the population in the race.
And I have an answer for that. We'll get to that in a little bit. But I want to find. I want to correct something in the thinking in that, and we talked a little bit about this when we talked about the prison system last week. That the prison system is a thermometer. It's not a thermostat.
Correct.
It is a reflection of what's happening in society.
It
is not. It is not the
That's
institution that's causing it. It's a reflection of what's happening. So if you simply again, if you get 100 students to take a math test, and 50% of the students are white and 50% of the students are black, but the results of the test show that 80% of whites pass it and 80% of blacks don't pass it, does that mean the test is racist?
Not necessarily, but it could be.
No, but that's the correlation equals causation. You can't do that.
Okay,
but it's a thermometer.
Tells you
so
that something is wrong.
It tells you something is wrong,
Okay.
but it doesn't tell you that it's not the test that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. People see, well, that test is racist. Oh, the prison system does this. The prison system is racist. Oh, instead of looking at the actual cause, and the more we say it's the institution, it's the test, it's the test, it's the test, it's the test that's the problem, we're not going to get to the actual solution.
Right, but the problem with this test is it's not objective like a math test where 2 times 2 equals 4, and that's black or white, yes or no, right or wrong.
Right.
This is a test like an essay test where it is
No,
subjectively
I'm
graded
talking
by
about
a human with biases. And that can be a judge or district attorney.
Don't get caught up in the math test. I'm talking about an actual situation where the test results of math showed that white students scored better than black students, and the pull from that for the people were saying, well, then that test is racist and you shouldn't be taking it. We need to change the test. It's like, that's dumb thinking.
Well, we know
that's dumb. That's dumb thinking. No, the test is a reflection of what's going on. Let's find out what's going on in the background. Don't say the test is the problem.
Okay, so you and I agree here that that number one, something is wrong, and number two, we need to investigate to find out what's going on in the background.
Yes,
right?
and I believe it was investigated 40 years ago and ignored.
Really?
Yes. Have you ever heard of the Moynihan Report from 1962?
I'm not familiar with it.
The Moynihan Report is a report about the person named Moynihan. It was raising concerns over the detriment of the black family in the ghettos, and it was ignored because the idea was, well, then you're blaming them. So the test, the study that was done back in 1962 that was looking back into families, black families in the ghetto, and the detriment of black families as a possible reason for why things were in the middle class, black middle class was going down, crime was rising among that demographic, but it was ignored at that time as saying you can't blame them. You can't blame black people for their own problems. And it was literally ignored, even though I want to talk to you about this. 60% of black men have left their children, but only 6% of black men are actually in prison. But 60%, more than double of white men have left their children fatherless. Mm-hmm. Why?
Do you have the stats on children who've been left by white children who've been left by their father, and the stats on the outcomes?
Yes, 72% of blacks are born out of wedlock compared to 30% of whites.
Okay. So why do you think that disparity exists?
I believe that disparity exists because there are now programs, and this is where it's like I feel that there is a side effect that programs that have been well-intentioned to say, let's reach out to the poor black man. This is white leaders saying we need to rescue the black community.
Oh, so the white savior complex, which, by the way, is another form of white supremacy.
Right. So that saying we need to help them, we need to give
That's
these
the
welfare departments.
Being a white supremacist institution.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trying to think that they're going to help, and the side effect has what's caused. So it's possible that you and I actually agree on the institution. I just don't believe that it's an institution that is trying to keep them down. I think it's an institution that has mistakenly tried to make things better, and it's made it worse.
So can you give me specifics? Like what program are we talking about, or programs?
What's that?
Are we talking about a particular program or programs?
Yeah, let me see. Do I have it on here? The Children's Defense Fund, established in 1973 to provide for black children what their fathers were no longer providing. It was literally something that was established. This was a response when the Moynihan Report came out 10 years later, when they said, hey, what can we, and it's like, no, that's not the problem. The problem isn't families breaking down in the ghetto. The problem is we just haven't given enough money. They just need more money. We need to provide for them every time a person is born in poverty. We need to give them money. And this has been 40 years of the system trying to throw money at something when it's a problem with the family. It's a problem with family. It's a problem of fatherlessness. Not a system that's oppressing and keeping people down because they want to keep them down. It's a problem with fatherlessness.
I know there are many black dads out there that love their kids as much as you and I love ours.
Absolutely.
And
I'm just saying the statistics. Why
their kids.
Why are 72% of blacks born out of wedlock compared to 30% of whites and 58% of Hispanics?
That's a great question. And
is it because they're all in prison?
No, they're not all in
They're
prison.
not all. Only 6% of them are in prison.
Okay.
Where's the other 65%? Why is that happening?
So you agree with me that this is something that bears some investigation, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But
I believe the solution isn't throwing more money at it. The solution isn't just keep giving, because that's what's been done for 40 years and it's making it worse.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what the Children's Defense Fund actually does. I don't know that they make much difference at all, because black poverty is 22.2%, whereas white poverty is 8.8% now.
Well, of course it is. When you're growing up without a father figure, when you're growing up with no dads, when you have 72% of children being born without two parents, there's going to be a breakdown in what they're able to do. There's going to be a breakdown in what they think is possible.
So the net worth of a white family, get this is astounding, $134,000. The net worth of a Hispanic family, the net worth is only $14,000. A black family, this includes the father in the house, $11,000, according to the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances and the Pew Research Center. And when we look at unemployment, we have white unemployment at 3.6%, black unemployment at 6.6%.
And I think all of those numbers coincide with fatherlessness. They all coincide with fatherlessness.
But where does it start? Does it start with fatherlessness, or perhaps it starts with unemployment? Perhaps it starts with the fact that a system of white privilege has existed for nearly 400 years in this country, and this is simply the manifestation of that. This is I was trying to find this. I have read this before. I was trying to find it again before today, but I could not find it, so it'll have to be in question. But why was it before the civil rights movement in the 1960s? Okay. Before the civil rights movement in the 1960s, black middle-class families were on the rise. Statistically, black middle-class families were on the rise in the 50s, before the civil rights movement. After the civil rights movement, it began to decline. And especially in the 70s and 80s, it began to drop dramatically as these programs came in to replace the fathers. I don't know. It could be an effect of unionization. Unions have done a lot for the working class, and that would include black Americans.
But if it was on the rise, why did it start to drop?
70s,
what I'm saying is that it's not. No. What I'm saying is that since slavery has ended, it has not been a steady decline in black middle class. That there was a rise, that it was actually growing until the 60s. Then it started falling again. What happened in the 60s and 70s that caused that? Because it's not just slavery. It's not just, they've always been repressed. It's since the slave, it's always been on the decline. No, there was a rise. There was a rise up of black middle class on the rise,
but
and then it started to drop.
Equality with whites.
It was on the way. It was on the way up. Why did it go down?
Well, I don't know the answer. And the answer, I would bet you, though, lies somewhere in the system.
And I believe in the Moynihan Report in 1962, this person was discovering the answer. That to go back into to find out why the family was breaking down. Why is the family unit breaking down? Why is the family unit in black society so broken?
And why does any family break down? It's bad when any family breaks down.
It is. It's awful when any family breaks down. Why is it happening twice as often in the black community?
But here's the problem, is even if we have a family where the father is still in the family, still in the household, you have 134,000 net worth versus 11,000 net worth. How do you explain that except for there's something very deep and persistent in the system?
So suddenly it's, I can't explain it, therefore racism did it.
Well, obviously,
just like Christians,
right.
I can't explain it, therefore God did it.
The only distinctive difference between a white family and a black family is the color of their skin.
Oh, that is a broad statement you just made. Oh my God! Think about the statement you just made. Think about the statement you just made. You just said the only difference between whites and blacks is the color of their skin.
That's right.
No.
What's the other difference?
The other difference is individual difference.
What do you mean? What does that mean?
You're literally saying because the color of their skin, this is a problem.
Because of the color of their skin, you have an entire population of here in the United States that has not enjoyed the same opportunity and the same benefits and the same privilege that the other 75% of the population has enjoyed. And this is how it manifests itself, a difference in net worth. So even if the father is there, which I agree, that's an issue, and we don't want families to be broken up.
How many of those families had fathers?
Well, in this case, this is a family, so it includes mother and father inside the household.
That was determined in there?
Yes, white family, and this is a family-based statistic. Again, U.S. Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances and Pew Research Center. These are not single-parent households that they are surveying.
Okay.
So there's something happening in the institution because we have so many white people who are running around who are either overtly racist or who are subconsciously racist. They're simply not aware of the fact that they're racist. But this attitude is bubbling up to the surface, and it's manifesting itself in these key fundamental differences in our society. And this is what we have to change.
All right. So here we go. This is from the Broiling Institute. 3 things to get into the middle class. You've heard this before?
No, I have not.
3 things to be in the middle class. After studying the middle class, it's like 89 or 90% or somewhere in the high 80s or low 90s of people who are in the middle class did these 3 things.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Does not matter skin color, does not matter anything. They did these 3 things. 1, they finish high school.
Good.
They don't have a kid out of wedlock.
Mm-hmm. Good.
And they get a full-time job, any job, out of high school.
Good.
Those 3 things.
Mm-hmm. Those are great things.
What is keeping that much of the black community from doing that?
That's an excellent question, and
I
think it's
the white man. It's the white man keeping them down.
Yes.
These are look.
Yep.
So the white man is keeping them from finishing school. The white man is keeping them from having a kid out.
Yes.
Really, there's a white man holding a gun to their head saying, "You're going to go have sex and you're going to have a kid right now."
No, there's actually probably about 100-something million white men doing that in so many different, very subtle ways that even some of those participants aren't even aware.
So you're saying black people are having sex and having kids out of wedlock because white people are making them?
Because I think that the conditions are created where that's the most likely outcome, where failure is.
So it's not choice. It's not choice at all. Your choice has nothing to do with it. Sorry, the black man has no choice. You have to go have sex and have babies outside of wedlock.
No.
That's what he's saying.
The individual has the final choice. But when you set
when you make good
choices,
you can get out.
I agree. I absolutely agree. I think that if you are the poorest kid in the most disadvantaged circumstances, you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But I really think you are starting.
I'm not even
the ball
talking
game
about
with
that.
2 strikes against you. I think that that when you have people who are born into poverty, it affects the very way you think. Are you familiar with the marshmallow experiment?
Yes.
Okay. So the marshmallow experiment is basically an experiment where they took kids from middle-class backgrounds and kids from poor backgrounds, and they set them in a room, and they put a marshmallow in front of them, and they said, "Don't eat this marshmallow for 5 minutes, and when I come back into the room, I will give you a second marshmallow if you have not eaten the first."
Mm-hmm.
a vast majority of the poor kids ate the marshmallow because they did not have confidence that the marshmallow would be there in 5 minutes. They had some fear that something was going to happen that would take the marshmallow away. The same thinking applies to poor people. Well, who is predominantly poor in our society? Well, about half of the black Americans living in the United States are considered poor. And that, when given that, it affects the very way that people think. Poverty changes the way that we think. And why is there so much black poverty? Well, I gave you the Monopoly analogy on Facebook last week, right? So let's play a game of Monopoly. If you don't think systematic or institutional racism exists, let's play Monopoly. I'll go through it real quick.
Okay.
So here's how the
Then
game...
I'll tear it apart.
That's fine. Here's how the game works. For the first 240 turns, you do not get to collect $200 when you pass go, and you may not buy property.
Mm-hmm.
That represents the 240 years of slavery.
Okay.
And then for the next 100 turns, we're going to agree, yes, okay, maybe that was a little unfair. We're now going to allow you to collect $100 for passing go, and we'll allow you to buy property on the first row of properties between go and just visiting.
Okay.
And then only after 100 turns of that, so after 345 turns or so, that's when we will allow you to play and buy property the same as anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Now, who do you think is going to win that game?
The game's already won.
Exactly.
No, I'm saying that's why I'm saying your analogy.
I have all the money and
that's
I have
why
all the property.
But then that didn't happen. That's not how
But that's
life.
exactly what
that's
happened.
not how life works. That is not how life works. Life is not one round where you go this way and you can only go on these properties. Literally, if we went 240 rounds with me not being able to buy anything, the game would already be over. And obviously, that's not true. There are still black Americans in middle class and upper class. Yeah. But the analogy doesn't work because that's not how life works. There is not one round to go around. There's not one place to pass go, and there's not one, there are roads. If you want this analogy to work, then the monopoly board would have to be a monopoly board where roads and properties are added. It's like there's only this many properties, and that's all you get. There's only this much opportunity. The game of Monopoly has a limited amount of opportunity.
Zero-sum game.
Yeah, it's a limited amount of opportunity. The real world is unlimited opportunity. The real world has unlimited opportunity. I do not have to go over your property. I can make a road that goes over here. It is unlimited opportunity. The monopoly analogy does not hold up because that's not the way the real world works. It's not a zero-sum game, and there is unlimited opportunity.
After last week's show, you and I talked a little bit about your family.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess you mentioned that your grandparents were probably pretty poor.
Mm-hmm.
And then your grandparents sacrificed so that your parents could do a little bit better. But your parents were also poor. Yeah,
you've watched that video. I'm sure we've all seen it online where the guy lines everybody up in a line. Mm-hmm. And then he says, if you still are with if both of your parents are still together, take one step forward. If you've never had to, this whole thing, and all of a sudden it just spreads everybody out. Now we're going to race to the end. Mm-hmm. And here's the finish line. And here's $100. And here's this football field size. And these people who all these things didn't affect them, they're all the way up on the 50-yard line already. Mm-hmm. And it says, this is what privilege is.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yes. Everything he said, every situation he brought forward was somebody's choice that led that person here. Mm-hmm. It was somebody's choice. It was outside of their realm. They couldn't choose it, but somebody did. That was somebody's choice, that sacrifice, that did something that gave that person that privilege. Now, here's the thing. Life is not a finish line right here with $100. Mm-hmm. There is no one finish line that everybody has to get to. And as soon as one person gets there, everybody has to stop racing. That's not life. Life is you run your race. You push yourself. This person has this privilege. If they push hard, now they're going to be up here. If they just go on their privilege, they're only going to get this far. This person said, I'm going to go here so that my kid gets to start their race this close. Mm-hmm. My kid gets to start here. I'm going to choose because bad choices were made before me doesn't mean I have to keep making bad choices for my ancestors.
Mm-hmm. Like being born black.
What do you mean?
That's one of the problems.
No. My grandparents were born Mexican.
Uh-huh.
So what?
Okay, so
They were born
my
Mexican.
point
My
is-
great-grandparents came in from Mexico, immigrated, became naturalized citizens in the United States of America. Their children were born in the United States of America as citizens, only spoke Spanish. They were migrant workers. My grandparents, my dad's parents were married, and their honeymoon was in a tent at the apple orchards in Cupertino where they were working. That was their honeymoon. That's where they lived. They eventually moved to Visalia. The family moved to Visalia. My grandfather decided he did not want to work in the fields. He found a job sweeping up and mopping up the blood at a butcher shop at 17 or 18. That's where he decided he was going to work. And he learned from everybody around him. He hustled. He learned. He figured it out. When somebody quit, he knew how to do that job. He stepped in there. He eventually got married, raised his family, moved back and forth between Visalia and Bakersfield. My father went to 11 or 12 different schools in elementary because they constantly were moving and moving until they finally settled in Bakersfield. And my father and his brother grew up in Bakersfield in high school, settled, solidified. My grandfather took my dad to work one weekend in the summer in the field. Says, I want you to know what it's like to work in the field so you'll know you don't want to do this. You find yourself a better job. You make yourself a better. And that his decisions, his choices as a Mexican American, as a dark-colored Mexican-American, not fitting in with white America, he made his decisions and he made good choices, set up my father. My father became a school teacher, got set up me, and now my kids go to private school because of the privilege of 3 of my generations.
Exactly. Privilege snowballs. It accumulates.
Yes.
But then what happens when you
It
follow
accumulates
that trend
because
for
of choice.
340 years. 340 years of accumulated privilege.
Yeah. Somebody earned it.
huge.
Somebody earned it.
My ancestors earned their white privilege in a way.
Somebody
took it
earned
from the
it,
black
so
people.
go earn it.
They took it from
Go earn
African
it.
Americans
Go earn it.
who built this country, who built the eastern half of this
I'm sorry.
country.
My privilege came from slaves.
Partly, yes, absolutely.
Through
Who do you think built the White House? Who do you think
no,
built
I'm
half of
sorry.
America?
My privilege through my Mexican heritage came from owning slaves.
All of our
Come on.
privilege.
All of our privilege came from owning slaves.
A substantial portion of it, yes.
Through my Mexican heritage.
Mhm.
Wow,
And
that's a
here's one other
reach.
thing.
That's a stretch.
What if somebody had
So
told...
suddenly, magically, because my dad married a white girl, suddenly I have to have white privilege thrown on me. So all of a sudden, all of that, none of that sacrifice from generations of Hispanics coming up from Central America, Mexico into the United States, all the generations on my dad's side of the family, that is now for moot because he married a white lady, and now suddenly I have to pay for white privilege.
Well, here's
And my success came from the slavery of the whites.
Here's one key difference. When your father decided he didn't want to work in the fields, he wanted to become a teacher.
Yeah.
The answer to his application was yes. But what happens if the answer is always no?
It's not always no. It is not always no.
What if it
no,
is?
it was not. It
What
is
if
not.
it's no
it is
95%
Okay,
of the time?
so now it's just hypothetical.
What
no.
if it, no, because if black unemployment is double that of whites, then that means you have people who are qualified for jobs, who are applying for jobs.
Who says they're
not
qualified?
Getting them.
Who says they're qualified?
They've done studies. There's even studies that show that if your name sounds black, whatever that means, but if it sounds black, you don't get an interview. That's institutional racism.
That's individual racism.
Remember, the institution is run by individuals.
So it's individual racism that's causing.
So right there, we're demonstrating that people of color, that blacks, do not have equal opportunity to whites.
Yes, equal opportunity exists. Absolutely equal opportunity exists.
How does it exist if half the jobs I apply for are not even going to consider me because my name sounds black? How is that an equal opportunity? Okay, so this is what's really cool. First of all, Scott and I have had this really intense conversation. I can tell I'm looking at you, Scott, and you're looking at me. And I see
you
the
don't make
smoke.
sense.
I think I do. I
don't make sense.
I know. But we're able to keep our cool, and we're able to.
You are painting.
Come to some agreement here.
Here's the problem. You're perpetuating the problem by painting entire swaths of people as not being able to do something.
Obviously, that's the case because that's what the thermometer.
I'm saying no.
There's a problem.
Yes, it's telling us a problem.
Exactly.
Exactly, it's telling you there's a problem. You're saying the problem is because of their color. I'm saying part of their problem is because of their individual choices.
No, the problem isn't because of their color. The problem is because after almost 4 centuries of accumulated white privilege, people of color do not have the same opportunity as their white counterparts. That's what the statistics are telling us. That's what the research is telling us.
It is individual choice. It is
But
individual
what if the choice
choice.
is never even offered to you?
It is.
Was it? Did you have the option of going to Harvard?
No.
Did you even think about going to Harvard?
No.
Why not?
Because I didn't have the grades to do it.
Okay. And what if...
I didn't even make it into honors class. The last day of school, my sophomore year, I was upset because I didn't make it into honors. I didn't make it into any honors classes, but I realized I didn't do the work. Like, I literally looked at the list. It was a bad day, and I looked at the list, and I'm like, I didn't make it to the honors classes, and I got on the bus, and I was upset. Actually, almost got into a fight with somebody, but that had something to do, something else to do. I almost fought him because I was so upset. But I looked at it, and I realized I didn't do the work. I didn't do the work.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I could have made it. I knew I could have done it, and I didn't do the work.
Did you have a tutor growing up?
Nope.
Did you have somebody who sat there and said, I'm going to sit down, and I'm going to work with you, and I'm going to get you prepped for these classes?
No.
Did your parents do that for you?
They were always on me to do my homework.
Sure,
But
sure.
no, there wasn't like a tutoring or anything like that.
Why didn't they hire one?
I don't know. I would assume they couldn't afford it.
Okay, so if you can't afford it, then that's one opportunity that's unavailable to you.
No, I still could have made it. It's my choice. I chose not to do the work. I chose to slough off. I knew what I was capable of doing, and I didn't do it. I know that about me.
Whether or not a kid gets into honors classes begins in preschool. It begins with whether or not there's 2 parents in the home.
Yes.
It
So
begins
stay together for your kids.
We agree
Do
with
it.
that. We agree with that.
It's your choice.
But it continues. Do both parents have to work? Because if both parents have to work, then that's less time spent taking care of the kid.
My parents chose not to.
They chose not to what?
My mom chose to stay home.
Good.
We didn't have new car.
Good.
The very first new car that my parents ever got. Gosh, I got to really think about this. I think I was already graduated from high school and married and out of the house when they bought their first new car. No. Sorry, no. The very first new car, 1978, we bought a Volkswagen bus. Bought a Volkswagen bus. My dad bought. That was the very first new car that my family had when growing up. Now before that, my dad bought like a new Mustang before I was born and stuff like that. But it didn't go very well, and he had to sell it and get it didn't work out. It was a poor choice of things to do. But our family grew up with used cars.
So did mine.
Because my mom chose to stay home with us, and there were sacrifices that our family. I never had cable TV in the house growing up. We didn't have new cars. We weren't going out to eat all the time. My mom didn't have her nails done. My dad wasn't, going off and fishing and buying boats. There were sacrifices that everybody made so that my mom could be home, but it was sacrifices that they chose.
But what would happen if your dad didn't have a good job to support the whole family? What if both parents had to
He
work?
didn't. He was a photographer, and he had to have a store. He worked in the daytime as a photographer, and then in the evening he taught karate, and then he also had a store selling karate supplies. And then he was a gunsmith, so he would work on guns for people that would hire him. He would buy parts and everything like that. So he hustled. And that's how we grew up. Those were the sacrifices they made, and that's what happened. That's how eventually, because he was a photographer for the current high school district, and eventually became a photography teacher, and then got his teaching credential to do that, and then because he got his teaching credential and everything's going there, he ended up becoming a graphic arts teacher. But it's all about choice and sacrifice. It's on you. It's on you. Your choice, your sacrifice. You make good decisions for your kids. I grew up in a family that did that. From a poor family of color. From a poor Hispanic migrant worker family. 2 generations decided to do something better than what their families did.
Did your dad ever face discrimination?
I don't know if he ever talked about it. I don't know. He grew up in, like I said, Visalia and Bakersfield, going back and forth. He never really told me whether or not he did. He was obviously Hispanic looking when he was older. He's a big old guy with a Fu Manchu mustache, and but I don't know. I don't know if I've heard stories of that, and maybe there were some. Mom, if you're watching, I'm sorry, I forgot what they were. But
have you ever experienced discrimination?
Have I ever experienced discrimination? One time, I thought it was really interesting. My dad, because he taught us karate, he taught us always to be aware of our surroundings. Mm-hmm. Always watch out, especially when you go into a mm-hmm. restroom and stuff like that. You know, somebody could come up behind you and stuff like that. And there was a time for a while I was wearing these big, thick black boots and kind of baggy, not quite Janko jeans, but these baggy jeans, and I had a black leather, not like a leather zipper, but a straight black leather, and I had a black hat that I wore backwards, and I kind of had a really bushy black goatee. Mm-hmm. And I was at the movie theater, and I went to the restroom. And I was at the urinal, not to get into too much detail, and I heard the door open. I'm always paying attention who's coming in. I heard the door open. I glanced over. I saw the person come in and then turn around and leave. I'm like, that was interesting. And I finished up, went to wash my hands, looked in the mirror, and I looked at myself. I'm like, oh, I'm the thug. I just scared that person. I'm all, oh, well, maybe I don't want to dress like this. That was, I literally, somebody walked in the bathroom, saw me, and walked out. And then I looked at myself, and I'm like, well, I'm dressed like a thug. I'm big old jeans, black boots, black leather jacket, mm-hmm. hat backwards, not really shaven, just big old bushy goatee at the time. I'm like, I probably shouldn't be like this. Not be like this. I probably shouldn't dress like this.
So how do you think life would be different if you experienced discrimination on a regular basis?
I would definitely be discouraged.
Okay. Do you think that would have some impact on your choices and on your outcomes?
I think it would have an impact on my outlook.
Because racism hurts, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Racism is painful.
Yes.
It hurts. It affects people.
Any type of bullying affects people.
Right.
Any type of bullying is going to hurt. Do you give in to the bullying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well,
this generation seems to.
Well, I don't know. I think it can have a cumulative effect that can affect an entire population of people. And I think if we were to get into history, we could see lessons in history. For example, the Irish under English rule, mm-hmm. right? The Irish were certainly bullied. Now, they were white, but they were bullied mercilessly by the English. And after 12 centuries of English occupation of Ireland, you end up with a situation where you have gross inequality between English Protestants living in Ireland and the native Catholic Irish, and that's systematic racism. And that's what you get when you have centuries of systematic racism. You have these wild disparities between the two races.
So it looks like the system, in everything that it's trying to do to fix it, is making it worse.
Well, I want to talk to you about this.
Yeah, because you brought this first. We only got a few minutes left. I want you to have a chance to demonstrate this.
In my opinion, this is the status quo, and that weight represents systematic racism. There are two ways to fix this. Mm-hmm. There's my way and there's your way. Now, my way involves putting the thumb on the scale, using the law, affirmative action.
Because you believe they can't do it on their own.
Because I believe that we have to do something
because
to
you
fix
believe
the problem.
Because you believe they can't do it on their own.
The system has to be reformed, affirmative action and so on.
The white man has to come in and rescue them.
No, I think the system has to
be changed. The system is what you said. The system is what you said.
Okay. Well, we have to do something to reform the problem.
And for 40 years, we've been trying that, and it's making it worse.
Well, I don't know. There are other things we could try. For example,
there's a lot of things we could try. If you're
African-American, you get 1.5 times the tax rebate, for example, that a white person might get.
Because you believe they can't do it on their own.
Because I believe we have to do something to equalize this situation.
You got to make reparations for the past.
Yes.
You have to make reparations for the past.
I agree.
No.
Yeah. And
you have to make reparations for the past.
I am the beneficiary of centuries of white privilege. I owe something towards that.
And how much do I owe?
We all owe.
No, how much do I owe?
I don't know. I can't throw a specific
I'm sorry.
dollar
So if my dad married a Mexican woman, I wouldn't owe?
I don't know, Scott.
Then how can you propose that as an answer when you can't even define it?
We have to do this.
That's right. We have to help them because they can't do it on their own.
Until
white man needs to help them.
Until you do your job, and here's what your job is, Scott. Mm-hmm. You are a pastor, right?
Yes.
Your job is to work on people's hearts.
Yes.
This is your job. Your job is to take this weight off the scale. And you do that through the work that you do as a pastor.
And
you change people's hearts.
But doing this works against me.
Well,
doing
as you
this,
do your job, I lighten up.
No.
As you do your job, I lighten up.
Oh, thank you very much. You're going to make it harder for me until I show some progress. Then I'm going to go and give you a little chance.
Well, the problem is,
how about we both start doing this instead of making it worse? How about we both start working on the heart of people?
I agree.
What if government started rewarding things like families staying together? Not here's the color of your skin. Oh, here's some money. How about no? You lived up to your commitments. Okay, here's some money. Let's reward good behavior. People are going to repeat what's rewarded. Let's reward good behavior. Let's not just throw money. Oh, this is your skin color? You get this much. Oh, that's your skin color? You only get that much. Oh, you're white? You don't get nothing. That's racism. Literally, that's racism. Literally, that's racism. The color of your skin determines your reward.
There has to be some kind of affirmative action.
The affirmative action is to correct the heart.
Of white privilege over 4 centuries.
No, there does not have to be repaid back.
Yes, it does.
We changed the hearts of people. We changed the hearts of people.
If I stole something from your family...
You did not steal anything from me. I didn't steal anything from them. I did not steal anything from them.
But you are the beneficiary
because
of what
my dad
your
married a white
ancestors
woman.
Stole.
Because my dad married a white woman. Come on, that's what you're saying. No, that's literally what you're saying. If I didn't have white in my blood, then I wouldn't owe.
Okay, Scott.
Come on.
Maybe Scott's off the hook. But white America definitely owes a debt because white America enjoys a privilege that has accumulated over nearly 4 centuries of racism, which includes slavery, segregation, and the status quo, which is still not equal. So we have to do something to correct the problem.
We have to change the hearts of people.
And that's where Scott and I agree.
We have to change the hearts of people.
And that's where we agree.
This has been a really harsh topic of discussion. We're at 45 minutes. We always try to keep these at that time. Guys, please communicate with us. Email us, avalidanswer@gmail.com. Comment on the videos as you see them. Share them with everybody. Tell us why we're right, why we're wrong. Join the conversation. This podcast is about communication. It's about conversation. It's about discussion. It's about bringing these things out in the open. And the risk, even in this conversation, the two, I'll call us white guys, because that's what you want, and carrying on even this conversation, because it's easily going to be to say, well, you guys just don't know what you're talking about and you're racist and all this kind of stuff. And, I don't care. I know who I am. I believe you know who you are. I'm willing to discuss. And the more we're willing to openly discuss, even in the face of backbiting, we need to openly discuss these things.
It's an important step.
Yeah. So we're on Sundays, Valid Answer on kerncast.com every Sunday at 5 o'clock, a valid answer at gmail.com. And any last words? That was it. I don't know what we're talking about next week. I don't even think we've had a chance to discuss it. We might even do a broadcast maybe earlier in the week or something. We're not real sure. But there's a lot of things coming up, a lot of stuff with our lives coming up. I know that you're going to be out of town for a little bit, and then I'm going to be out of town, and then so we'll be finding things to go.
Back.
But we will be back. Keep finding us 5 o'clock Sunday nights, a valid answer. Thank you guys.